everyone, and welcome to Back Alley Chat, the number one fastest growing recovery podcast in the world. Me, your host, Allie Severino. So happy to have you all here for lucky episode number 13. I can't believe we made it. When I first started this podcast, I was only going to make 12 episodes, and here we are, still rolling. Today I have an amazing guest, a dear friend of mine, hippie, Jess Gero. When we first met, a lot of people thought that we were just total opposites, like oil and water, and we became really close, and we have a great connection. So I think you all are going to love that interview. And of course, I would like to, as far as the giveaway that we did in last week's episode, since we're recording this on a Saturday, I want to give everyone a full week to enter and comment on everything like that. So I'm going to say whoever the winner is on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So I'll post it on my community tab on the YouTube and on my Instagram. And of course, I'll message whoever the winner is. I'm so excited. And of course, I would like to express my gratitude to our sponsor, Quick Intel, for their continued support. And every week, I have the privilege of sharing information about Quick Intel's exceptional AI tools that provide essential safety and security in the crypto space. However, I have yet to explain how user-friendly and straightforward these tools are to utilize. For those of you that are involved in cryptocurrency, you may already be familiar with DEX tools. Think of DEX tools as like a stock chart, but specifically for cryptocurrency. By visiting this platform, you can effortlessly look up any cryptocurrency and take advantage of the Quick Intel tab to scan the contract. So every different cryptocurrency has a contract. And what Quick Intel does is scans those contracts to see if there's any things that you might want to be alerted about that seem scammy, okay? So Quick Intel has scanned over 500,000 contracts, establishing themselves as a trusted resource within the crypto community. So make sure to detect scams before they happen. Visit quickintel.io today for more information. And as a special segment, because, we're trying to do this little segment moment with interviews, I wanted to make this week's segment about financial literacy. Not that I'm a financial advisor at all, but I can only give tips as to how I became more financially free. And the only reason I brought this up is because I was talking to a lot of the women in my office and in my life in general, and so many of them had never made a budget before. And almost every single one of them who have never made a budget before were experiencing money issues. Well, if you don't know where your money's going, you're going to have money problems. You need to know where your money's going. So the first thing I did that really helped me figure all of this out was go through my bank account one line at a time and literally add up every single thing I spent money on. And I have, my shelter, so what I pay for my mortgage, my HOA, electricity, water, whatever, right? Transportation, these are necessities. Food is a necessity. And because I've done this so many times, I've been able to see in 2018 to today, I have doubled the amount I spend on food every month. I used to spend $300 a month on food. Now I'm spending $600. And it's not because I'm buying anything that different. It's called inflation. But it's pretty cool that I can see that in my budget. When I first took this job, before I got my promotion, I almost didn't take it because I told my dad, I said, Dad, I don't know. This seems like not a lot of money. Don't know how I'm going to survive on this. And when I did my budget, I was going to have an extra $100 a month. Not a lot of wiggle room there. So I did things like my Ipsy bag that I get every month. I switched that to bi-monthly. I put things on pause that I was able to. And then that year, I was able to save over $1,000 with barely any extra income. But it's because I knew what I was taking home and what I was spending. And I was able to cut things that were not necessary. Right? You have 12 streaming services. Can you get a password from someone? What's going on? Right? So just that was a little tip. Another tip I have when it comes to investing your money is to always invest it safe, obviously, but you want to, what they say is always pay yourself first. So when you get that paycheck, you need to put some aside for you and your future and the things that you might want to do. I mean, so many people that are retiring right now don't have money to survive. And that's a really big deal. I got some actual statistics that I wrote down for you guys. 59% of adults are living paycheck to paycheck. 60%? That's unbelievable. 18% of those individuals make over $100,000 a year. And I think the issue is when you start making more money is you feel like you need to start keeping up with the Joneses a little bit, right? You're making $100,000 a year. You kind of want a little bit of a nicer car. You've been driving this 99 Toyota Hoopty. You want to level up a little bit. And if you buy a car right now, you know your interest rate is going to be astronomical. And it's amazing how many people don't know what their interest rates are. That's also something really important to look into. And I think it's important to know when we're looking at social media and stuff like that, that social media is truly a highlight reel of people's lives. There was another statistics that said 3 out of 5 people pay more attention to how their friends and family spend their money and not how they save their money. None of these influencers online are telling you that they have a ton of debt, what their budgets are, how much they're truly making. Are they returning all that Amazon crap they just tried on for you on that video, right? So I think it's a really important thing to remember that, you know, maybe not everybody is as poppin' as they pretend to be. And it's not really important to have to be poppin' all the time, you know? I just paid off my car last month, and I'm so excited to drive that thing into the ground and to not have a car payment. And I thought I had this really cool quote that I read the other day, and it was basically saying if they took all the money in the world and evenly divided it up to everybody, everyone had an equal amount of money, within a year, the same billionaires would have their money back. And it's because of how they think up and look at money. And I think when we go through today's interview, you're going to see how important it is to pay attention and to really have a grasp on financial literacy. What else do I got over here? 30% of people are not saving $1 ever. So the first thing they say to get a little bit of financial freedom is to save $1,000 to start that emergency fund. Most Americans don't have an extra $400. God forbid something happened to their car or they had to get a tooth pulled, right? They do not have that money. So the first thing that everyone can do is start a little fund. And then in a year from now, you can say, Allie, I started putting away $20 a week and now I have X amount of thousands of dollars and I'm so happy and now I'm going to Yellowstone, right? So anyway, just little tips, little statistics, just to get your brain going. Maybe I'll have somebody on here one day that's really good at this stuff and we can have a deeper segment. But I thought it was an important thing to just bring up and plant the seed, as you know I like to do, the great farmer that I am. Plant those seeds and just give you something to think about. And I also wanted to mention, last week I had talked about dry dating and sober dating. And no one commented about this, but it's just a personal thing. I was like, God, just such a loser to not date somebody because they're sober. And then I started to really think about it and I go, it is kind of risky to date somebody in recovery, right? And so I wanted to throw that out there too, as to like, I guess I can understand sometimes where people are coming from when they are nervous to date an addict in recovery or alcoholic in recovery, because God forbid something does happen. That could be a nightmare. That could ruin your life too. So I kind of get that. And I guess after experiencing that myself, being on the other side, being in a relationship with someone who relapsed, wouldn't want to ever do that again. But that doesn't mean that's everybody. So I don't know. Just wanted to throw it out there because I don't want to say they're all wrong or we're all right, because we all know we can be a little crazy. Like I can fuck your life up pretty quick if I want to. So I guess it's all about how spiritually fit that person is and where they're at in their life. And I think that we should give at least everyone the opportunity to show that, I guess was my point, instead of just ghosting them because they don't drink. So that's my little rant for today. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to who I have saved in my phone as Jess Gero. Hey, Jess.
Hey.
Thanks for coming to hang out with me today.
Absolutely.
So you are somebody who I just adore, and I truly respect you. And I give you a hard time all the time, but I know that I do that out of just something I just like to do because of your woo-woo doctors and tarot cards and crystal healings and sweat lodges, but for you it works. And so I know that you had long story short, what we're going to get into is Jess basically was in recovery for a long period of time, doing some really cool stuff with Phish shows. She had an issue happen with some inheritance money. That led to a little bit of a spiral, which I got to witness. And then that spiral led to a massive comeback, which I also happily got to witness. So Jess, tell us a little bit about where you're from and, what's your family from? You're not from Florida originally, right?
No, I'm not.
Where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia.
How could I forget? An Eagles fan. Oh boy. Biggest Eagles fan. Sorry, but I forgot about that. So, Jess, you got sober in 1999.
Yep.
Is it because you were partying like it was 1999? Or what happened?
Nope.
What happened?
Nope. I actually got, let's see. This is so long ago, I can't even remember.
I know. I was wow, I was 9 years old.
I was 22.
Okay.
I was 22. So I started off going to college. Where did I go to college? In West Virginia. When I went to college, I did great in high school, was doing fine in high school, and then I got to college and I started drinking a lot and smoking a lot of weed. And I never really did any hard drugs, but it was just a lot of weed. And so I was kind of just going down like a slippery slope, but nothing terrible. And, wow. Well, I got pregnant, and, yeah. And so I was going through a miscarriage, and my grades were bad in school, and I was hanging out with the wrong people, and I was smoking a lot of weed, and I was drinking a lot. And I still question whether it was complete addict behavior or if I was just going through a phase because I was 20.
Right. You're a baby.
22. I was in college. This is what we do.
Right.
But anyway, so my parents pulled me out of school because they also decided not to have my major. So I got pulled out of school, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do now? I still wanted to do physical therapy, and I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare, and I wasn't sure where I was going. And I was like, all right, well, let me just take a few classes. So I did that, on the side, and figure out what I want to do. Well, lo and behold, I figured out that I was going to go to nursing school. And I worked as a security guard.
Okay.
I was mall security.
Yeah. I would love to see Jess Gero try to stop me from shoplifting. I'd be like, listen.
I was sitting on the loading dock smoking weed. But, yeah. So, and then I also was a security guard for a pharmacy company. I think it was Smith, Klein, and Beecham, if I can remember. I just sat there at night while those people were working, and I studied. And I think I had another job. I can't remember what it was. It doesn't even matter. But I was working. I was going to school, and it was taking me a very long time to,
my life. Yeah, welcome
get
to my
there.
life.
Yeah. And I just started smoking a lot of weed. I had a lot of background. Short story short, I'm adopted.
Oh, yeah.
I had a lot of social problems as a kid. I had a lot of learning disabilities, dyslexia, whatever you want to label me at. So I went to boarding school because I needed some more help than I was getting where I was in private school.
Right.
I think I went through 5 different schools. I went from public to public with special ed to private with people with learning disabilities to I need more help. And anyway, so there was a school that was specialized. You had to have a documented learning disability to go to the school. And thank God for them because they prepared me for college.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I went to a 5-year reunion in Connecticut because that's where I went to school. And they had beer kegs set up everywhere and whatever. I just had a whole weekend where it was no matter what I did, I couldn't get high anymore.
Oh, no,
And
it wasn't working.
I drank a lot,
right.
and I smoked a bunch, and it just wasn't working anymore. And I guess I got to the point in my life where it was I don't want to say that it was messing up my life, but I was soulless, inside.
Right.
I was just kind of lost.
So what did you decide to do?
Anyway, so we had this weekend, 5 years. And then after the weekend, I got to class, and I'm sitting there in class, and I'm like, my parents had confronted me a week before that they thought that I needed some help, and I was like, nah, I'm fine, blah, 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 blah. And I had this boyfriend at the time. He told me that he thought maybe I had smoked too much weed, and I was like, nah, I'm fine. He started reading me the NA book.
Oh, God.
While we were, like, getting high together.
Wow.
So
That actually I will never forget one of my best friends bringing an AA book home and us reading it while we were smoking oxys.
yeah, it's
But
like
it was a good book. We were like, this is great. This is so spot on.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, it was
So
like,
he's reading you the basic
well,
text.
he was like, he basically planted the seed, like you were
Right.
talking about. Like, I am a big believer in planting the seed. So
Mm-hmm.
he planted that seed. My parents planted the seed. I got back from this week, and I just felt like I wanted to smoke weed, and there was no way I could even get weed at that time. And I was like, how am I going to get weed? And I just felt like crying, you know? So I'm waiting for the teacher, and she shows up, and she's late, and we're supposed to take this test that I just found out about that I didn't know about, that I wasn't prepared for, which isn't like me,
Right.
you know? And so she was late, and I walked out of class. And I went to see my father, and he said, are you ready to get help? And I said, yes.
Wow. And so you went to rehab, inpatient rehab?
I went to, I went to Father Martin's Ashley in Havana Grace, Maryland.
Okay.
And then they were like, okay, you can't come home. You're not allowed. You need some more help. And because I had all these other issues, they're like, we're going to send you to a dual diagnosis place. And they show you a picture of like a palm tree with a pool, and you're like, okay.
Oh, that's how you ended up in Florida.
That's how you end up in
Everyone I've
Florida.
had on this podcast has ended up in Florida the same way. Even if they're not in recovery anymore, every single person was like, this happened, and I saw a palm tree in a pool, and then here I was, and I'm still here 20 years later.
Right.
Which is you know?
24
You're like
years
a
later,
real
it's like,
Floridian.
whatever.
Right. So you come down here and you start your recovery. And now one thing I know that you're really big into is music festivals. You love music. You're going to a show tonight. You're always going to shows and doing stuff. That's your jam. So tell me about, a lot of people associate a lot of these music festivals with drinking and drug use. And you went to them for many years not doing that. What was that? How'd you get involved? And
so when I first got clean, I got in a relationship with a guy, and ended up getting married, and it was just a bad situation. Anyway, I was in rehab. When I was in rehab in Maryland, this guy, I was wearing overalls, and I had a fish patch on my ass, and he's like, you like fish? And he was one of the therapists. And he's like, do you know that you could go to music and stay clean? He said, there's this whole group called the Fellowship. And I'm like, another seed planted, right?
uh-huh.
So when I first got clean, I was working at Target at the time, and I was riding my bicycle, and anyway, I was dating a guy.
Love it.
I was dating a guy I wasn't supposed to be dating.
Perfect.
No outside relationships, no new relationships, and I did all that. Anyway, so I was like, didn't really want to get into my interest because I wasn't sure. Like, I was scared. Like, do I still like music? Will I like the music sober?
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't know what I liked and what I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I was just learning how to
Who Jess is.
and be
Right.
without
Substances.
something to medicate my sadness that I've been feeling my whole life.
Right.
So anyway, so I my first concert, I took my ex-husband to see AC/DC.
Okay.
Because that was his favorite, and it was my first clean concert. So I was like, okay, that was cool. I could do this.
Uh-huh.
So then I discovered Crazy Fingers. It's a local Grateful Dead group.
Okay.
They've been playing for 30 years, something like that. And my husband and I were just fighting a lot. And meanwhile, I gotten kicked out of rehab for
Being with him. Uh-huh.
And moved in with him. We ended up getting married. Anyway, during that time period, I started venturing and going to this local Grateful Dead cover band with some friends who were clean.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Grateful Dead community, they have a group called the Wharf Rats for sober
What is it
people.
called?
The Wharf Rats.
The Wharf Rats? Warfrat? How do you spell that?
WHARFRATS.
Warfrats.
Yeah,
Is
so
it like a
like
thing on a
each,
song? Is it like a song
each
thing?
jam band group has their
Jam
own
band.
sober support group.
Cool.
So you could go to the music, and during set break, you could. They have usually a meeting set up, and if you are having any trouble during the show, there's people there that you could talk to.
Awesome.
No, I mean I know there's people that they have test kits out there for people that are choosing to use drugs, and they could test their drugs to make sure they're not mixed with fentanyl or anything. It's
But
just
there's not
known around the group. But no, this group is just for support if you want to go to shows and stay sober and need help getting through the shows.
Cool. So were
Because
you
there
super
is a lot of
involved in that or
drugs.
no?
And I was.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started going to this Grateful Dead cover band, and then my parents gave me I wanted to go to nursing school. I was working at Target. I wanted to finish nursing school because I had gotten into nursing school before I got clean, and I never finished it. So I decided I wanted to finish nursing school, and my ex-husband was like, well, I'm not going to pay your bills. And I was like, well, how do you expect me to work and go to school at the same time?
Right.
Nursing school's like not a walk in the park.
Right. It's hard.
So my parents, who didn't like my ex-husband, were like, and my grandparents were like, we'll help you, but you have to leave him if you want our help. So it's either him or nursing school.
And obviously you chose nursing school.
So I chose nursing school.
How many years ago did you become
And
a
I
nurse?
left him. Anyway, so then I went to nursing school, and I became a nurse when I was 28. So I'm 47 now. So 19 years ago.
Wow. So, and you love being a nurse. I know you worked in the trauma unit, right, in Delray for some time.
I started off in oncology, and then I went to med tele as agency, and then I worked in the ICU and the CCU, coronary care unit, in Delray Medical Center, and then I worked in the ER there, followed by I left there, and I worked as a flight nurse for a while, and then I worked as I was doing 3 jobs to create one job. So I worked PRN as a flight nurse. I worked PRN in the ICU for Bahamas West. And then I also worked in some rehabs. I worked at 3 different rehabs on the side. I've also opened up an IV infusion therapy clinic with an ID doctor. I also delivered babies with a midwife. I've also done some home health care on the side.
Wow. Well, what has been your favorite out of all of those things?
ICU, which is where I work now.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is it your favorite, you think?
I like the adrenaline rush. I like seeing the broader picture of the patient. I like helping people go to the other side. I also like saving people's lives. I like when there's action. The sicker, the better.
Ditto.
It's like, give me a challenge. I want to learn about how I could save this person.
Right. So when did you receive
So-
this inheritance, and where did you get this inheritance from?
So I went to. So backtrack. I started going back to Phish again. Started seeing Phish in my first show was my ex-boyfriend from high school took me on New Year's Eve. December 31st, 1993.
Wow.
Yes. And then, so I started seeing Phish shows before I got clean, and then I started seeing them again after I got clean. I got clean in 99. Phish went on a hiatus in 2005, and then, which is right when I was just graduated from nursing school. I graduated in 2004, and then they came back in 2009, and I've been pretty much head active ever since.
You're always at a Phish show.
Yeah, I've seen over 200 shows.
Oh my gosh,
30 years.
200 shows.
30
I've been
years.
to literally 3 concerts. 2 of them were Lil Wayne. Don't come for me. I don't know.
So anyway, so it's a little obsession of mine. They get me, and I like to dance, and I like to have fun, and their music just gets my soul. But anyway, so I first heard of the Fellowship back in rehab, and then when right after I got clean, they only had like a Yahoo Facebook group. You know what I mean?
Yahoo Facebook.
So I met people through that. And then when they went on our hiatus, it was like, you know, they didn't play for 5 years.
Right.
Trey was actually in the middle of getting clean. He's been clean ever since.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so, yes, they have a sober.
That's why they went on a hiatus. Is the whole band sober? Or?
2 out of 4 of them.
Cool. That's really awesome.
Yeah, they went on a hiatus. Trey apparently got arrested, and he had a fight with his wife. He was on the road. He got pulled over. He got arrested. They sent him to the drug farm.
Stop it. He went through the drug farm? Are you kidding me? He's a drug farmer?
They talk
I
about
might
it a lot.
become a Phish fan. I didn't know that.
He talks about it a lot, and he still talks for them when they ask him to speak. And he's been clean ever since. I think it's like over 12 years. Anyway, so back in 2009 when they came back, that's when Facebook was around, and then suddenly we could have the fellowship. And it became like an active group. So I went to I was working. I was living by myself, and I was working, and I was able to afford stuff, and I started going to a lot of shows. I probably go to about at least 10 a year.
Wow.
And that's how I got really active with the fellowship. And then, lo and behold, in 2015, I loved working at Delray Medical, and I learned a lot. But we just butted heads, me and my boss.
Right.
And I definitely could work as an ER nurse, but it wasn't the right niche for me. And we agreed on that. So I left. And that's when I inherited the money.
What did you inherit the money for?
So my mom passed away 11 years ago in 2012. And she had an aneurysm and dropped dead.
Wow.
And my grandmother passed away 2 years after that. So when my grandmother died, she had an inheritance that my mother was supposed to get, and it got split between me and my sister. And then, so we got that half, and her brother got the other half.
Wow. And how much was the inheritance that you received? A lot.
Hundreds of dollars.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and when you received that money, obviously you wanted to keep it safe.
I literally got it right after I had lost my job.
Which is great timing.
Yes. I left my job. I left my job, and then I went to Peru for 2 weeks. And then I went to, right after that, I went to supposedly the last concert that the Grateful Dead were supposed to have, which ended up not being the last concert because they're still going, and this is their last year, so they say.
Allegedly.
So anyways, and then right when I got home is when I got the money. Okay.
So then what did you do?
So that was in 2015. I bought a house.
Oh, okay. I love your house, by the way.
I love my house.
I love your house. It's just so cute. It's so you. I love it. Great. I love it.
My grandmother her dream was for me to have a house. So I made sure that was.
Well, thank God.
Lo and behold, I was going to spend the money on that. So thank God I had my house. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Boynton. It's super cute.
Yeah.
And then right after that, and my friend sent me to this woman that I won't say her name. And she was trying to get me a mortgage, and I decided that wasn't going to work with her. And then she introduced me to her partner, who supposedly invests money, and you get lots back. And so I made a really bad investment with my friend, thinking I was going to get my money back, and I didn't. But it took me years to figure that out.
Wow.
So it was like...
Was it like a Ponzi scheme?
So to speak.
How did it work? What did he say was going to happen?
No, he basically invests in cars and houses.
Okay.
And you get money each month, and then once they sell and stuff, you get more money.
So, and you were getting a check every month?
Technically, for the most part. Technically, they said if I want it out at any time, let them know at least a month or two advance, and then I'll get all my money back.
Okay.
Well, I did, and then I didn't get anything.
Oh, my God.
And we got in a gigantic fight, and I haven't spoken to him since, which is funny because it's actually come back around recently. I went and saw lawyers. I went to talk to many people. I spoke to hundreds of thousands of people about the situation. But at first I didn't because I was really embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. And lots of people tried to help me, and nothing ever worked out with it. Lots of people tried to sue him. I know multiple other people who were involved as well.
Wow.
They also lost a lot of money too. And we all tried to work as a group to bring him down. Mm-hmm. And nothing ever came of it until 6 months ago.
Stop it.
I'm not kidding. Right? Around 6 months ago, somebody finally sued him. And they finally was able to sue him. Because every lawyer, didn't want to take this case.
Right.
And so his partner is filing for bankruptcy.
Wow.
So from what I hear is that they're both going to wind up in jail and go through bankruptcy. And this is your last chance to get any money back if they have any. Mm-hmm. So I have a lawyer working on that. And if I get money back, I get money back. Right. If I don't, I don't. But the best thing that would happen at this point where I'm at is if they wind up in jail.
100%.
You know what
I mean,
that they don't do it to anybody else.
Right.
Again.
I mean, to get away with that for so long and to take so much money from people is just unbelievable. And I remember me and you talking about it before, and I can just imagine the guilt or just the anxiety even thinking about it, because something I did twice before, in my 20s was I saved up 10 grand, 15 grand, and then I wasted it all till I didn't have $1, which was just so dumb. And it's a totally different thing, but just knowing that I did that, knowing that I could have been working, but I decided to take time off and have fun, right? So stupid. And I beat myself up about that for so long. And so I can only imagine how I would beat myself up in a situation, because I'm just very hard on myself, And so I know that must have been, I would have burned the guy's house down. Did you know where he lived? Did you hire a hitman? I mean, really, I would have been like, bitch, that's my motherfucking car now, bitch.
All those thoughts crossed my mind. And, it was crazy because he was a friend of mine. And
was he a hippie?
No. But he knew. I know, right?
What was his astrological sign, Jess?
Oh, I don't even know.
Betty was an Aquarius or something terrible like that.
Yeah, right. Or a Taurus.
Right.
A Scorpio. So anyway, so he was supposedly a friend, and I talked to him and told him how much this money meant to me and where it came from. And I got really deep with him about about how much this means to me and how much this money would totally set me up to live the life I wanted to live.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Buy a house, I'm already working, be able to travel when I want, be able to fix my house and my health, and have a little, retirement fund.
Yeah.
And I got really deep with him, and he just total narcissistic sociopath took advantage.
Wow.
Used.
Wow.
Yeah.
So thank God you had purchased your property, first of all, because that's one thing they don't make any more of, land. I don't know who would invest in cars. Seems like the worst investment ever. What a weird thing to tell people you're investing in a depreciating asset.
Right.
But so...
Well, they flipped them.
They flipped the cars. Interesting. Did I tell you that Phil's car got stolen?
No.
So Phil got a brand new car
last week. Does he
have
gap insurance?
I don't know. It's going to be fine. The insurance thing, I think, is going to be fine. It's a really long story. It's so much longer than this, but long story short, he got this new car and he kind of got finagled into he didn't really want the car at first because both of our cars were paid off. So we're like, yeah, we're killing it, right? Let's keep going. It was from his brother, whatever. Long story short, he wakes up to go to work and he's like, where's my car? So I don't see my car. Did I park it somewhere weird? And there was a cop there, and he goes, oh, what are you doing? The kid was like, my car got stolen last night. And Phil was like, what? And he was like, oh my God, my car's gone. And there's somebody stealing these Q50 Infinities like
hotcakes.
That's so crazy.
That's
and they,
so crazy.
You know what they did? Nothing. They joyrided it to Miami and ripped a bunch of stuff out of it, but kept it all in the car.
What?
I have no idea. I don't get it.
Sounds like their plan fell through.
Something. So, So all that stuff happens, and you have left Delray Medical.
I was working 3 jobs to create 1 job.
Okay.
I just bought a house.
And what
And I
led
go
to
through,
you
like-
deciding to drink? It had been so long. It had been 17 years
Well, it
since
really
the last
wasn't
time.
even about the drinking.
But what
'cause I
led
didn't
you to
drink
it?
A lot.
Because it's
like
not
the
normal
smoking
to drink after 17 years of not drinking alcohol and being part of a fellowship and doing all of that stuff. It's just not a natural thing to do because you're not regularly doing it. So it just happened or what?
It just happened. I mean, one thing, okay. So I love the program of AA and NA.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very good thing for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it's a pathway for life? Do I think it's a pathway for everybody? Nah. When I got clean, what it gave to me, community, to be in a community, like I had all these, issues, and it really made me feel good to be a part of and be involved. It taught me about service, helping others, doing volunteer work. I did a lot of volunteer work when I was in nursing school. And it taught me about structure. I needed the structure, because I was all over the place and with all my little labels. And but most of all, what it really did for me, all above all else, was spirituality. I was missing that spiritual piece of my life, and it gave me that. And I really deep dove into the spirit. Like, I've been doing self-help stuff. I got thrown in therapy when I was 6 years old. Been in therapy ever since. And then once I found the program, it was like, okay, more self-help stuff. Like, I love that stuff. Like, I'm addicted to self-help stuff. I love making myself better.
Right.
And improving my life. And, I love the holistic path. And, I used to have lupus, and I cured my lupus through Reiki and therapy and all that. And,
Just already knew my face before she even
I've
said
been
it.
in remission for like 12 years. But
I have to say, like the things that you do works for you, and I think it's because you believe in it.
Right.
And it has to,
so like
that's
the
the way it has to
spirituality
go.
piece brought me all that I love. The
Right.
sweat lodges, the meditation, the breath work, like all of it.
Right.
Like the self-help groups, whatever. Anyway, that's how I found it through the program. And my sponsor at the time was really big into all that. She taught me about sweat lodges. She taught me about when I lost that money and realized I lost that money, there was a series of events that happened that year that was like, I was just like in a black cloud. You know what I mean? It was like I knew I was in a black cloud and I couldn't get out. And a few things happened on the line, which ended up with me losing my job. And I tried multiple things to get off the path and just couldn't. It's like...
Well, it was
have a
like
say in
you
the
were
matter.
struggling.
In the fellowship. And when I got honest with them, told them what happened, they actually...
About the money?
No. They were more upset that I relapsed. And it's funny because before I relapsed, I asked them, would they still be friends with me if I chose not to stay clean anymore? And they were like, yeah. And then when they realized that I had relapsed, before I even told them, they stopped speaking to me.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
And that's the kind of thing that gets me, because I've had similar issues with AA where, great story. We're doing a big book study and they're talking about this guy doing cocaine and drinking. And I was like, what's wrong with doing cocaine and drinking? Tons of normal people do it every day.
Right.
Like, it's not just because you drank alcohol, drank a couple beers and snorted some Coke doesn't mean you need to go to Alcoholics or Anonymous, okay? That's not how that works. And so because I made that comment, it started this massive thing where my grand sponsor's calling me to go to her house. I get there. I'm like, what's this about? And they're like, oh, you're building a case to relapse. And I'm like, what? Like the big book literally says stuff like this. Like, it literally says there's different kinds of people. There's problem drinkers. There's these kind of drinkers. And then there's the ones that are just hopeless, right? So it was just frustrating for me to have it coming from all these different places when I was just being a person with a brain. Not everyone who does drugs needs to go to AA or NA.
I agree.
People do drugs all the time. Lawyers and doctors hang out on New Year's Eve and do drugs. I mean, it's whatever. So I understand that feeling, and I think that that's something that has maybe improved in 12-step world, only because so many people now choose different pathways to recovery. There's a ton of people who do smoke weed, or
that huge stigma. You know, there's
for
still a lot
sure,
of people that
massive
like,
stigma, 100%. Yeah. 1,000%. But it is changing. It is changing with time. So that happened. You start drinking. You're smoking weed. Were you drinking? I seen you drunk, so I know you're drinking.
So I relapsed right after the money came. Mm-hmm. I started smoking weed. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't the first year. I like did it every once in a blue moon.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. You weren't like
every other week.
You weren't like being a problem drug user at all. No.
No. And then I go out to a lot of music. Mm-hmm. So when I go out to music, sometimes I would drink. I never drank every day.
Right.
I never really got, like even when I first got clean, I never did crack. I never did heroin. Mm-hmm. I never did any hardcore drugs. Like, sometimes I like to drink, sometimes I like to smoke weed, and sometimes I like to eat some mushrooms, whatever.
Right.
But that's pretty much it. Mm-hmm. And then, so when I relapsed, that was pretty much it again.
Right.
But the thing is that the weed was more and more every day because I started struggling and going through a hard time.
Right.
With the guilt and shame from losing the money. Mm-hmm. My sister and I started having problems. Mm-hmm. I became complacent at my job because I was bored. Mm-hmm. I was bored. I loved the flight nurse, but I was bored as an ICU nurse. I was used to a high acuity hospital where we had really sick people, and now I'm in this like 19-bed, 18-bed ICU where there's not much going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have sick people, but
not sick enough.
Yeah, they're just. I was just bored.
Right, I hear you.
All the corporations, like as nursing becomes more, and there's lots more corporations, like there's so much more micromanaging, and like healthcare is just over the years has gotten really hard to work in.
Yeah.
If you're not like a policy
person,
follow the rules type of person.
So annoying.
Yeah. So it's just that happened. I was still going through, like, losing my grandmother, losing my mother, losing a relationship that I chose to leave because of whatever. There was just a lot.
Yeah.
And then I got involved with... So I've done a lot of spiritual things, and I'll try anything once.
Yes.
And this one lady, out of all the years of my spiritual practices, took advantage of me. Mm. And I don't know... even to this day, if she truly took advantage or not. Mm-hmm. But we had a toxic relationship, and there was just a lot going on. Yeah, I had just bought a house. They raised my mortgage like $800.
Wow.
Yeah, I bought my house for $250. Mm-hmm. The people before me bought it for like $100. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they had to do what you bought it for. Yeah, that happened to me when I bought mine too.
So $800. So I'm like, I was like losing my shit. So anyway, how I lost my job. I was at work one day, and I have this little sassy, little bitchy, little attitude that comes out every once in a while. To be honest.
Right.
And anyway, I was just having a lot of personal stuff going on. Mm-hmm. They had floated me because I worked PRN, so they put me wherever they wanted in the hospital. Right. So they floated me. I was sitting in a new area. I don't even know if I've ever been there. And I had a new charge nurse. I think I've worked with her one or twice. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. Mm-hmm. But everybody where I worked in the ICU kind of knew me and my personality, and they,
right.
they
accepted
knew me for me.
Right.
Well, she didn't know me. So I was a little short. Yes, I just have a lot of personal stuff going on. They're like, do you want to talk about it? And I said, no, not really. It's none of your business. And, right. They didn't like that answer.
I should have to tell you what's going on in my life.
Right. They didn't like that answer. So they brought me into HR suspecting that maybe I was on drugs. And they drug tested me because I didn't want to tell them what was going on. And, you know, you could get random drug tests as a nurse. I'd been a nurse for 16 years at that point, never got randomly drug tested. And I told them straight out, this is going to show up positive for weed.
Right.
Nothing else is on the test. I am going to tell you right now, this will be positive. Didn't matter whether I told them or not.
Right.
So if I had been a full-time nurse at that point, which I wasn't, I was per diem, by law, they are not allowed to fire me.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yes. And they have to send you through this program. Each state is different as what they're going to do with it. And Florida's a little harder than every other state. And because I was PRN, they had to fire me.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So they couldn't do anything. It was out of their hands.
Right.
They didn't want to do it. When I walked out of work after I got drug tested, I told my dad what happened. He was all
no.
your little attitude has gotten you in trouble your whole life. He didn't even care about the weed.
Right.
He was just more about my attitude. And I was like, I know, I'm working on it. And I've worked on it over years, but I'm not perfect and I'm still human. So anyway, lose my job, have to go through this program called IPN.
And it is such an intense program. When you were going, all this was happening, I was like, bro, this is insane what they're having you do because of weed.
Right. Which
Okay.
I wasn't. They can't even prove that I was high on the job, which I wasn't.
And that was for 2 years, I think. And I was concerned for you, Jess, because I was like, wow, all of this is going on. You kind of looked like you were on a downward spiral. Let's be real. You're dating, whatever. You're kind of going out a lot, getting drunk. You know, you're just different, right? And then this thing happens at work and you lose your job, a nurse, which you love being a nurse. That's so you, and you're not there anymore. And you have to go through this unbelievable program that is just so difficult. And getting a job was so hard for you.
Oh my
and
God,
you were
so
out of
hard.
work for how long because of this?
So I didn't work for a year and 9 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So while this was going on, it's called Intervention Project for Nurses. Each state has their own thing. This is what Florida does. And they basically, as long as you go through this program, they don't tell the board what's going on. But if you don't follow through this program, you tell the board, and then it's in the board's hands of what they want to do with you. So I was like, all right, whatever,
Yeah, I'll do
I
it.
want psychologically and mentally and emotionally be able to fit to be a nurse. So there's people that go through the program, and, most everybody there that was in the program for 5 years.
Wow.
So I was blessed, and they only gave me 2. I met with this guy. He's a doctor of addiction. He was actually really cool. And he was like, it was funny because he said in 2 years, he's like, this is going to be a non-issue anyway because, medically, there's medical cards now, and we're a medical state now. We're not recreational, but we're medical. And eventually, people drink alcohol, and they're allowed to work. People have scripts for opiates, and they're allowed to work.
Right.
So if people have script for weed, they should still be allowed to work.
Right.
And the nursing the healthcare community is going to have to figure out what they're going to do with it.
I mean, the whole country's going to have to figure out what
Right.
to do with it because it's just crazy that you can't even be a employee for the government.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, exactly. So eventually that's going to have to all shift. But he basically said, you have a lot going on personally in your life, and I want to put you in. He made me go to an intensive outpatient program. So I did that, and they tested everything. They did my hair, my nails, my urine, my blood. They were
Wow.
able to see alcohol in your blood for the last 4 months, 4 weeks.
Wow.
They could tell you how much alcohol you've had in your blood for the last month.
Wow.
Which I had no idea they knew how to tell.
Yeah, I didn't even know alcohol could go back that long.
Yeah, I didn't either. So I was like, and it's
Wow.
funny because I did like I said, I wasn't drinking every day, but I had a lot of drink right before I wasn't allowed to drink anymore. Like one night I just really just had a lot because I knew I wasn't going to be able to drink again.
Right.
So of course that's going to show up, and it's like, oh, well, she's drinking a lot. Like, No, I just had a lot to drink.
No, it was just one time with a lot, not a lot over a long time.
But that's what I mean.
Right.
So whatever. So I did whatever they told me. So I saw this doctor of addiction. I got all these tests. I did the program for 3 months. And after that, I got cleared to be able to work. Mm-hmm. So back in the day, I've been a nurse for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there was only one job that I tried to get that I didn't get accepted. Every other job I've interviewed, I've gotten. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like interviewing for hundreds of thousands of jobs.
Yep.
And I've never been turned down so much in my life.
I know.
There was all this rejection. And it's like, I have a very good resume. I've done everything.
Right.
And now I can't get a job. So as soon as they heard I was in the program, they didn't want to hire me. Mm-hmm. So that was one. Other people, they were willing to hire me, but in the ICU, if they have enough nurses, they will float you to other areas where they need you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If it's your turn.
Right.
Well, so I wasn't allowed to float.
Right.
So any of the ICUs wouldn't hire me because they weren't going to change the rules for me.
Of course, which makes sense, I guess.
But it was out of her hands.
Because I was worried about you. I was like, wow, if Jess doesn't find a job soon, she's going to like lose her house, you know? Because it started getting to that point, like 2 years, a year and 9 months with not working at all. And your whole resume is nursing.
Right.
It's not like you know how to cut hair on the side or something, right? Like,
well, the universe always supported me.
Right. 100%. 100%.
I don't know how, like, it was like, even when I was short on money, like, money came. Mm-hmm. Like, just money came. Mm-hmm. And it was like, constantly, it was like one thing I learned that year was that the universe always provides.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge lesson. Like, I don't have to do anything, and I know I'm going to be provided for. I'm not going to be put on the street. I started cleaning houses for a living.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yep. And I went on food stamps. I had to go on Facebook and tell my story and ask for a GoFundMe. Wow. I had to ask friends for help. I had to, like you were talking about the budget thing, I had to look at every single my budget. All right, what can I put on deferment? Mm-hmm. What can I cut out of my budget? Mm-hmm. And I had to be bare bones because I was not willing to lose my house.
Yeah.
That was like, gift from grandma.
100%.
No.
Yeah.
So I was willing to do whatever it took. And at the same time, I also had to go through all the psychological stuff of losing my job and not being able to get hired.
Yeah, and having to ask people for money and tell them what's going on.
And humble myself and whatever. And I just kind of had like a good feeling about it. Mm-hmm. And it's a further drive than I wanted to drive. But he hired, I interviewed, and I said, hey, I can't float though. Mm-hmm. And in the hospital that he was at, the reason why they can't float is you have to have your supervisor has to be able to oversee you.
Right.
So the way this worked was the hospital I was at, there's an ICU, there's 2 floors, like tele floors, and there's a step down, all on the one floor. So my boss overlooked them all. So he's like,
oh, that's cool.
What? He's like, you will be able to float in those areas because I still look over them.
Right.
You're just not allowed to float out because we float out to 2 separate hospitals. We float out to, so we cover 3 hospitals, which is different than any other hospital I've worked at. They've never done that. But, and they were willing to do that for me.
Give you that opportunity to finally get back on your feet. And when you started, you changed. You became, it was like the boost that you needed. Like you needed to get that job because you were like at the end of your rope. I mean, you had applied for every nursing job. You were going on constant interviews, and you start to get a little defeated because you were keeping this positive attitude, humbling yourself, doing all the things you're supposed to do, going to all the therapy, just really doing the work.
Going to therapy.
Yeah, not drinking, not smoking weed. You're doing the things.
I was not doing that. I was doing breath work. I was doing meditation. I was doing a lot of inner healing of like, what I had to break through so that I could create that job.
Right.
Like, I'm a very good manifester, and I had to, like, really dig deep and, like, turn myself inside out and try every single avenue. And I was so grateful.
Yeah.
I was super grateful. And it was like I was still floating, but I wasn't, I just wasn't floating to other areas. So
Right.
it was like the other nurses they didn't really ask questions like, why does she get to not float?
At the
Because
end of the day, are
this
you
was the
happy
job
that
for
these
me.
things happened? You would have been in a different place totally if it didn't happen, maybe even
Yes.
worse. Are you
Yeah,
happy that it happened
God
or what?
only knows. All I know is, it seems like whenever I go through stuff like this, like when I got clean, when when my mom passed away, when I lost all the money and lost my job, it's like this is like the worst thing that ever happened to me, and then it turns out to be the best, and then my life ends up like so much more better afterwards because
Right.
of it.
Right, because now you're trapped. You just got back from Peru. How long were you in Peru for?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then before that, you were in Africa. How long were you in Africa for?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. This girl's going on fucking vacation. Become a nurse, everybody, because wow, okay? I mean, African Sahara, she saw giraffes and all the things. She really did it. It was so cool. And
Yeah, I mean,
You're thriving now. You're thriving.
Well, that was the thing. It was like when I got my job back, I had this humbleness and gratitude. First of all, when I lost my job, I really had to dig deep and see, do I want to be a nurse anymore?
Right.
If I don't want to be a nurse, what am I going to do?
Right.
And do I want to go, what kind of nursing? Because it was like, I was bored and complacent at my job. Like, I couldn't keep doing the same thing I was doing. So it was like, yes, I realized I still want to be a nurse, and it gave me a whole new gratitude for being a nurse, which was crazy about the timing because I lost my job. That was October 2018, and March of 2019 is when COVID came out.
Right.
So I didn't have to go through that whole thing. And if I honestly look back and think, if I had to deal with COVID in the state I was in, mentally and emotionally, I don't know if I'd still be a nurse.
right. Wow.
Like a lot of the rest of the nurses.
Wow.
And so I came in at the tail end of it. And not only was I dealing with the COVID at the end of it, but my hospital didn't accept COVID patients. We shipped them to other
hospitals,
patients.
yeah.
So I didn't have to deal with any of that. So I was grateful for it.
I have a question. This is like an expertise question for you
Okay.
because I know that things that have
not
happened to
embarrassed
you
about it.
or somebody. Yeah, tell us.
So backstory. When I stayed clean for 17 years, that's exactly what I needed to do. When I started smoking weed again, I was like, and then when I got clean again, I'm like, am I an addict? Am I not an addict? I didn't do hard drugs like other people. Yes, I was addicted to weed,
Right.
but like, what else am I addicted to?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I learned that like everybody's addicted to everything. It's just a matter of what are you addicted to and is it serving you? Do I think I'm a full-blown addict? No. I think I have an addictive personality and can get obsessive about certain things, but I don't think I'm a full-blown addict. So that's what I came to terms with. And then I was like, well, do I want to be clean? Do I not want to be clean? Back in 2015, when I left my job, I went to Peru and I discovered plant medicine. And that's really supported me. And it's, like I said, that was the main thing.
How long does that last when you drink it? Like, what is that
It's
like? Can you tell me about the
6
experience?
hours. You get connected with God, and you kind of really take a look at your life and who you are, and you could see different things. I'm very good at creating under the medicine, and
What does that mean?
hard truths manifesting,
Okay.
having visions for what I want in my life. And anyway, so I've come to the conclusion that, like, I don't need to drink. It's just not for me. It doesn't really set me up to win or the lifestyle I want to be in. I can't smoke weed as a nurse because I don't have a medical card. And,
Right.
Until I create a new relationship with it, I'm not going to put myself at risk because I don't want to lose my job again.
Right.
Or anything else I have in my life.
Right.
And so I don't really do anything except for plant medicine on the side every once in a blue moon and kava.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in plant medicine. I'm a big believer in breath work. I'm a big believer in meditation, in healers, all kind of energy healings. I am a big believer in sweat lodges. I love spiritual groups. There's lots of like groups that I go to that we do a lot of prayers and meditation and, singing like spiritual music. It just feel good stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like my life is very all over the place. You know what I mean? Like I have, and this is what works to me. As long as all my areas are balanced, and all of the, as long as I'm focusing on myself and doing my spiritual work to help me get better, because I'm always working on something. It's like as long as I'm focused on that, it like helps me stay forward, and I don't need anything else in my life because that keeps me at the peace that I need. It was like tenfold.
Yeah, because you almost lost it all.
Right.
you know, and that's sometimes what we need.
Right.
Yeah.
And exactly, because I remember when I left my job, when I took that drug test at work, I said, I'm going to create a life even better than I had before. And I did. I did exactly that in every area. I got everything I had back tenfold.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like the more I do the work on me and get more authentic and, you know, continue to love myself and know that I'm worthy and deserving, the more like the people that are meant to be around me and the community, like like we were talking about, I lost those girls. It's like the people that are meant to be around me are showing up in my space,
right?
Like people like you and stuff like that.
I love our relationship. I just love in the beginning where I was just so grouchy.
I was ready to drag on you
know.
every
But
day.
And by the way, back then in 2015 especially, my life was like a nightmare at home.
Know.
You know, I was just going through so much, and I was very quiet about it. I didn't often talk about it, but I was just very heavy on me every day. And so of course I was like cutthroat. It was because I had a lot going on.
You
like
were fiery.
I'm very fiery. I mean, people think I'm fiery now. I'm like, bro, y'all don't know.
You have no idea. I was like, am I just going to get picked on today? I can't deal with her.
I know.
Let me go sit on the other end of the bar.
I know. I'm tough on people. But
I know you do it because you love them and you want people to better themselves, and that's all it's about. And I'm the same way.
Yeah, I need to work on it because I'm that hard on myself. Right. You know, I always say, like, if you can hear how I'm to other people, my friends, just imagine my brain to me all day. We're learning and growing, and this is such a weird, you know, with the submarine thing, I'm like, this is so funny. Okay, so if you go down in the ocean, too much pressure, die. Go up in the air, too much pressure, die. But we're just so blessed that right here on this beautiful green earth, there's just a perfect pressure, perfect water, perfect air for us to evolutionize into humans and to be here with each other and just even have this experience is a blessing. And it's complicated, and life is beautiful and complicated, and just got to kind of roll with it.
It is. Yeah, I'm very grateful for where my life is today. And, you know, as much as some of it was the worst things that ever happened to me, even what I've been going through now in the last 6 months.
Well, Jess, that's all we have for today, everybody. But if you could, like, share, subscribe, comment down below, what kind of pathway of recovery do you choose? Do you do spirituality stuff? Do you do sweat lodges and all this kind of things? I'm not close to it. She's got me. I'm into like the little jewels and candles or whatever they're called, the little stones and stuff. I'm messing with it. I got my moon water that I made on a full moon. Okay.
I taught you how to do that.
Yeah, you know, so my life's going to be changing any day now. And yeah, comment that stuff down below. I love you guys so much. Next week, we're going to have an awesome interview with Dylan Wilson, who is a hilarious TikToker. So I think you guys will really enjoy that. And if no one told you that they love you today, I do. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye.